Hi there! Thank you so much for watching. We're about to start, but real quick, if you haven't already, please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for this story. My name is Lauren Hayes. I'm 31 years old, and I teach art at a high school in Beaverton, Oregon. I've been married to Daniel Hayes for 6 years now. He's 33, works as a fire safety inspector for the city, and he's the kind of person who notices everything. Details other people miss completely, he catches immediately. It's what makes him exceptional at his job, and on one particular Thursday night, it's what saved both our lives. It was 9:47 in the evening when my phone buzzed with a text message from Daniel. I was at my younger sister Beth's apartment, helping her pack for a move across town. We'd ordered pizza, and I was kneeling on the floor, surrounded by newspaper and packing tape, wrapping her dishes in careful layers, when I saw his name light up my screen. The message was short. Just 3 sentences that made absolutely no sense. Don't come home tonight. Stay at Beth's. Trust me. I stared at those words, reading them over and over, trying to understand what they meant. We'd talked on the phone just 2 hours earlier, and everything had been completely normal. Daniel was planning to watch a recorded game and maybe do some work in the garage. Now he was telling me not to come home with 0 explanation. I immediately texted back, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" The message showed delivered, but never changed to read. I called him. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step going downstairs. Something was very, very wrong. Let me back up and tell you about my life with Daniel, so you understand why that cryptic text message felt so completely out of character. Daniel and I met 7 years ago at a community barbecue in the park. I'm naturally shy, the kind of person who finds a quiet corner to observe rather than jumping into conversations. I was sitting alone on a bench, watching the sunset, thinking about color and light the way art teachers do, when this guy sat down next to me and started talking about how the orange in the sky reminded him of a painting he'd seen once. We ended up talking for 2 hours straight about art, old movies, and our shared love of terrible puns that made both of us laugh way too hard. He made me feel comfortable in a way I hadn't felt with anyone before. Daniel proposed a year later on a hiking trail overlooking the Columbia River Gorge. We got married in a small ceremony with just family and close friends, and bought a modest 2-bedroom house in a quiet Beaverton neighborhood. It wasn't fancy or impressive, but it was ours. Daniel grew tomatoes in the backyard every summer, and I turned the spare bedroom into an art studio that smelled like paint and possibility. Our marriage was built solidly on trust and communication. We talked about everything, shared everything, never kept secrets. Daniel never once kept me in the dark about anything important, which is why that cryptic text message sent my mind spinning in circles. That Thursday had started completely normally. I'd gone to work, taught my classes, stayed late to help a student with their college portfolio. Daniel had finished his shift inspecting commercial properties around 5 in the evening and headed home. When I called him during my drive to Beth's apartment, he'd sounded totally normal, relaxed even. He told me to have fun helping Beth pack and said he'd see me later that night. We said, "I love you," like we always did, and hung up. Everything was fine, perfectly ordinary. I'd arrived at Beth's place around 6:30 with pizza and packing supplies. Her apartment was complete chaos, boxes stacked everywhere, half her kitchen already wrapped and sealed. We put on music and got to work, talking and laughing while we carefully wrapped her dishes in layers of newspaper. It was a normal evening, comfortable and safe. Then that text came through at 9:47, and everything changed in an instant. I read it out loud to Beth, my voice shaking slightly. "Don't come home tonight. Stay at Beth's. Trust me." She looked up from the box she was packing, her face immediately concerned. "That's really weird. Did something happen at your house? A pipe burst or something?" I tried calling Daniel again, straight to voicemail. I sent another text, my fingers trembling. "Daniel, you're scaring me. Please tell me what's going on." No response. The message stayed on delivered, never switching to read. Beth grabbed her own phone. Maybe there's a gas leak or something. Maybe he's dealing with an emergency and can't talk right now. But that theory didn't make any sense at all. If there was a gas leak, Daniel would call 911 first and then immediately call me to explain what was happening. He wouldn't send a vague 3-sentence text and then completely disappear. That wasn't how he operated. Daniel was a communicator. He over-explained things, if anything. I decided to call Frank Morrison, our neighbor 3 doors down. Frank was former military, observant and vigilant, and he spent a lot of time on his front porch watching the neighborhood. If something was happening at our house, Frank would definitely know about it. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Lauren, everything all right?" I asked if he'd noticed anything unusual at our place tonight. There was a long pause. "Actually, yeah. About half an hour ago, maybe 40 minutes, I saw Daniel leave in his truck. He was moving real fast, didn't stop to wave or anything, which isn't like him at all. Then, maybe 15 minutes ago, someone else showed up at your house. I couldn't see who it was clearly from my porch, but they went inside. There's a car in your driveway I don't recognize. Dark sedan, looks expensive." My blood went cold. Someone else was inside my house right now. "Frank, can you see my house from where you are?" I heard him walking, probably to his window. "Yeah, I'm looking at it now. Lights are on inside. That dark sedan is still parked in the driveway." I thanked him and hung up, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Beth was staring at me. "What did he say?" I told her everything. Someone was in our house, and Daniel was gone. Beth's immediate instinct was to call the police. "This isn't normal, Lauren. Something's really wrong here." But I hesitated, uncertainty freezing me. What would I even tell them? My husband sent me a weird text message, and now someone's in my house? It sounded paranoid, maybe even crazy. Maybe Daniel had a friend over and forgot to mention it. Maybe there was a perfectly logical explanation I wasn't seeing because I was already worried. But those words kept echoing in my head. Trust me. Daniel was asking me to trust him without any explanation. That meant he knew I'd be confused and worried and scared, but he needed me to listen anyway. He needed me to stay away. For the next 2 hours, I sat on Beth's couch, staring at my phone like it might suddenly provide answers. I called Daniel every 15 minutes. Every single call went straight to voicemail, his recorded voice cheerful and professional, promising to return calls at his earliest convenience. I tried texting different things. "Please, just tell me you're okay. I'm worried. What's happening?" Nothing. Not a single response. I called Andre Wilson, Daniel's work partner and best friend of 5 years, thinking maybe Daniel had mentioned something to him during their shift. Andre hadn't heard from Daniel since they'd clocked out. "You want me to drive by your place and check it out?" he offered immediately. I almost said yes, but something stopped me. What if showing up there made things worse somehow? What if Daniel was keeping me away for a specific reason and sending someone to investigate would ruin whatever he was trying to accomplish? Beth made us tea that neither of us drank. We sat there in her half-packed apartment, surrounded by boxes and crumpled newspaper, waiting for something to happen. Anything. I kept refreshing the local news on my phone, checking for reports of accidents or emergencies in our area. Nothing appeared. The city seemed completely quiet and normal while my world was falling apart. At midnight, Beth gently suggested we try to get some sleep. "Maybe his phone died. Maybe he'll call you first thing in the morning and explain everything, and we'll all laugh about how worried we got." I knew she didn't believe that any more than I did, but I appreciated her trying to comfort me. I couldn't sleep. I lay on Beth's couch with my phone clutched tightly in my hand, staring at the ceiling, running through every possible scenario in my mind. Was Daniel hurt somewhere? Was he in some kind of trouble he couldn't talk about? Had something happened at work that he couldn't explain yet? The not knowing was absolute torture. Every minute felt like an hour. At 2:13 in the morning, Beth's phone suddenly lit up with a notification. She'd fallen asleep in the chair across from me, but the sound woke her immediately. She grabbed her phone, glanced at the screen, and her entire face went deathly white. "Lauren." Her voice was barely a whisper. She turned the phone toward me with a shaking hand, and I saw the breaking news alert. There was a photo of a house completely engulfed in massive flames. My house. Our house. The place where Daniel and I had built our entire life together was burning. The headline read, "Explosion and fire in Beaverton neighborhood. Multiple emergency responders on scene." I grabbed the phone from Beth's trembling hands and stared at the image, unable to process what I was seeing. Flames were shooting violently out of every window. The roof had partially collapsed inward. Multiple fire trucks surrounded the property, spraying water that seemed to do absolutely nothing against the massive inferno. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't make sense of this. That was my home. The kitchen where we cooked Sunday dinners together, the bedroom where we talked about our future and made plans, the studio where I painted, my grandmother's quilt, our wedding photos, Daniel's collection of vintage records. All of it gone, destroyed, burning. Beth was saying something, talking urgently about getting in the car and driving there immediately, but I couldn't hear her over the ringing in my ears. Where was Daniel? He'd told me not to come home. Did that mean he'd known this was going to happen? Was he trying to protect me? Or was he inside the house when it exploded? I dialed his number one more time with shaking hands, not expecting any answer, just needing desperately to try. This time, someone picked up. But it wasn't Daniel's voice. It was a woman, professional and calm and completely unfamiliar. "Is this Lauren Hayes?" My voice came out as a broken croak. "Yes, who is this? Where's my husband? That's his phone. Where is he?" The woman's tone was gentle but serious in a way that made my heart pound even harder. "Mrs. Hayes, my name is Officer Melissa Grant with Beaverton Police Department. I'm at the scene of the fire at your residence right now. Your husband is okay. He's safe. He asked me to contact you if you called his phone. He wants you to know that he's safe and that you did the right thing by staying away tonight." I couldn't process what Officer Grant was saying. Daniel was okay, but our house was completely on fire, destroyed. How was any of this okay? My voice came out shaky and desperate. "I don't understand what happened. Why is my house burning? Where is Daniel right now? I need to talk to him." Officer Grant took a breath, and I could hear sirens wailing and people shouting in the background behind her. "Mrs. Hayes, your husband discovered an explosive device in your home earlier this evening. He immediately evacuated the premises and called 911. Our bomb squad responded to the scene, but the device detonated before they could complete the disarmament process. That's what caused the explosion and the subsequent fire. Your husband is currently being treated by paramedics for minor injuries, primarily smoke inhalation and some burns on his arms, but he's stable and conscious." An explosive device. A bomb. Someone had planted a bomb in my house. The words weren't making any sense. This was the kind of thing that happened in action movies, not to art teachers in quiet Oregon neighborhoods. Who would do this? Why? Was it an accident? Officer Grant's pause told me everything I needed to know before she even spoke. "Mrs. Hayes, this was not an accident. This was a deliberate and targeted attack against you and your husband. We're investigating the situation now, but your husband may have critical information that will help us identify who's responsible. Right now, I need to know your exact location so we can send officers to ensure your safety." Beth had been listening on speaker, and she grabbed the phone from my trembling hands before I could drop it. "This is Beth Sullivan, Lauren's sister. We're at my apartment in Northwest Portland." She rattled off the address quickly. "What do you mean, ensure her safety? Are you saying Lauren is still in danger right now?" Officer Grant's voice remained calm and professional. "If someone planted an explosive device specifically targeting your sister's residence, we have to operate under the assumption that they may attempt further contact or harm. I'm dispatching a unit to your location immediately. Do not leave the apartment under any circumstances. Do not open the door for anyone except uniformed officers who will properly identify themselves with badges and full names. Do you understand?" After Officer Grant hung up with strict instructions to stay put and stay safe, I sat there in complete shock while reality tried to catch up with what my brain had just heard. Beth was moving around the apartment efficiently, checking locks on doors and windows, closing all the curtains, doing all the practical things while my mind struggled to function. Someone had tried to kill us, not rob us, not scare us, but actually murder us with a bomb. And if Daniel hadn't found it, if he hadn't sent me that cryptic text telling me to stay away, if I hadn't trusted him without understanding why, we would both be dead right now. Then something suddenly clicked in my memory, like a puzzle piece falling into place. About 3 weeks ago, Daniel had mentioned something at dinner. He'd been getting strange phone calls at work, someone asking very detailed questions about our home address, what our daily schedules were like, whether we had a security system installed. At the time, Daniel thought it might be related to a property owner he'd recently cited for serious fire code violations. The owner had been extremely angry, had made some vague threats, but Daniel's supervisor had filed an official report with the police and they'd moved on. Daniel had mentioned it to me once, seemed slightly concerned, but not particularly alarmed, and then never brought it up again. I'd completely forgotten about it until this exact moment. 2 police officers arrived at Beth's apartment exactly 11 minutes later. They knocked firmly and announced themselves clearly, showing their badges through the peephole, and only then did Beth unlock the door and let them inside. One was an older officer named Patterson, and the other was a younger officer named Rodriguez. They did a complete sweep of Beth's apartment, checking every room carefully, the fire escape, the closets, and then positioned themselves outside in the hallway. Officer Rodriguez came back inside to talk to us directly. "Mrs. Hayes, your husband is being transported to Emmanuel Hospital right now. He's going to be fine, but they want to monitor him for a few hours because of the smoke inhalation. Detective Park is with him currently taking his statement. We'll take you to the hospital as soon as we get clearance that it's completely safe to move you." I wanted to scream at them that I needed to see Daniel right now, that I didn't care about clearances or safety protocols or procedures, but I knew deep down they were trying to protect me. Officer Rodriguez sat down across from me, pulling out a small notepad. "I know this is overwhelming and traumatic, but I need to ask you some questions while everything is still fresh in your memory. Has anyone threatened you or your husband recently? Have you noticed anyone following you or watching your house? Any unusual phone calls, emails, or messages?" I told him everything I could remember about the phone calls Daniel had mentioned, about the property owner who'd been cited and made threats. Rodriguez wrote everything down carefully, then radioed the information to someone. Beth brought me a glass of water that I couldn't drink. My hands wouldn't stop shaking violently. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that image from the news alert. Our house, completely engulfed in flames. Everything we owned, every memory, every piece of our life together, just gone, destroyed. The wedding photos from our honeymoon in the San Juan Islands. The quilt my grandmother had made us as a wedding gift. Daniel's collection of vintage records he'd been building since high school. My art supplies and half-finished paintings. All of it burned or destroyed beyond recognition. But we were alive. That's what actually mattered. We were both alive because Daniel had found that bomb and gotten out in time. Because he'd warned me to stay away. Because I'd trusted him even when I didn't understand why. Officer Patterson's radio suddenly crackled, and he stepped into the hallway to take the call. When he came back inside, his expression was grim and serious. "We've identified a suspect. Your husband gave detectives a name, and we're actively searching for him right now throughout the city. His name is Victor Brennan. Does that name mean anything to either of you?" I shook my head. I'd never heard that name in my entire life. Patterson pulled up a photo on his phone and showed it to me. It was a driver's license photo of a man in his early 40s with thinning hair and cold, empty eyes. 6 weeks ago, your husband condemned a warehouse this man owned in Northwest Portland. The property was being illegally used to manufacture fireworks. Brennan was arrested on site, lost his entire business, and has been out on bail awaiting trial. He made explicit threats against your husband during and after the inspection. There's an active restraining order, but 2 days ago, he cut off his court-ordered ankle monitor and disappeared completely. We've had a warrant out for his arrest since then. Beth grabbed my hand and squeezed it hard. This man, this complete stranger I'd never met in my life, had decided that because Daniel was simply doing his job, because he'd reported illegal and dangerous activity that could have killed people, we deserved to die. The sheer injustice of it, the absolute randomness, made me feel physically sick. We hadn't done anything wrong. Daniel had probably saved lives by shutting down that illegal fireworks operation, and this was his reward: a bomb in his house and his wife hiding in terror. At 4 a.m, Officer Grant herself arrived at Beth's apartment. She was tall, maybe late 30s, with sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to take in and assess everything at once. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm going to personally escort you to the hospital to see your husband. We have multiple officers positioned there, and the location is completely secure. Your husband has been asking for you constantly." I stood up so fast I got dizzy from the sudden movement. Beth grabbed my arm to steady me. "I'm coming too," she said firmly, and Officer Grant nodded. "That's fine. Stay close to me and follow my instructions exactly." The drive to the hospital felt completely surreal. The sun was just starting to come up, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that would have been beautiful under literally any other circumstances. Officer Grant drove carefully but efficiently, constantly checking her mirrors, and I realized with a chill that she was watching to make sure we weren't being followed. The idea that someone might be out there right now, watching us, waiting for another chance to hurt us, made my skin crawl with fear. We pulled into the hospital parking garage, and Officer Grant parked near the elevator in a spot specifically marked for police vehicles.